how do you think about what AI is doing? Okay. Chen, like a kind of a relatively famous, that's insulting, a famous kind of science fiction author, calls GPT and kind of the experience of that effectively lossy JPEGs. They're imperfect compressions of the world, so you can think of ChatGPT as kind of a lossy JPEG version of the entirety of the internet. And I like that metaphor because, like kind of JPEGs, it's an imperfect compression technology, and you see these artifacts sometimes where they just kind of like fill in where the data is missing. You know, when AIs hallucinate, they can feel a lot like that. Alison Gopnik, kind of a cognitive scientist, instead thinks of them as kind of cultural technologies, like writing and libraries and internet search engines, or just ways of translating large bodies of human knowledge, making them usable and just kind of like allowing them to communicate across people. But what's interesting is that like that's not what people who develop AI and who have been programming AIs like think is the most natural kind of analogy for what they are. And it's amazing how quickly this has completely taken over. And I think it's interesting to think about this analogy, AI as a shove-off, okay? Because it's what people who work in the industry find most compelling. What is a shove-off? It's this like H.P. Lovecraftian image of this effectively unknowable monster. What is I'm not going to kind of summarize the literature, but the memes, you know, which kind of convey this, is that like people who develop AI think of this as the AI, and this is the like, these are kind of inside jokes, reinforcement learning from human feedback. These are the things we try and like the controls we try and layer on top of the AI to make it not hallucinate, to make it not kind of compare humans to Hitler, to kind of, you know, not do kind of things we don't like about it. But effectively, the kind of key idea here is that people who program AIs no longer feel like they're programming. The analogy is they feel like they're summoning. Like they're like wizards who like understand that in some way I created this thing or I summoned it into the world, but I don't understand how it thinks. And I'm surprised by its power. Okay? I mean, I think what's interesting, I think what's most interesting is that philosophers have also picked up on this and said that in some sense, when we turn over control of our world to these new kind of creations, and we're surprised by like, you know, that in some sense that like that's not a new experience. That in some sense, like we've been doing that for a long time. This is a meme where kind of this shove-off, you know, is replaced by Hobbes' Leviathan. The basic analogy here is that like, you know, the first industrial revolution, like effectively when we left feudalism, we did the same thing. We turned over to kind of like modern capitalist economies, like, and these complex economic systems, control of our collective lives in a way that we didn't entirely understand. Okay, maybe that was depressing. Let's, moving on from that, using these analogies, let's think a little bit about what the best AIs fail at, okay? Like we just talked a lot about their kind of capabilities, and I'm gonna have to put like very precise dates on every kind of example, because anytime you kind of like look at these things, like this thing is moving so fast. So, examples from GPT-3 in 2020, okay? AIs fail terrifically at psychological reasoning. So just, you know, think about an AI as like very fancy autocomplete, ChatGPT, we kind of all understand that. Ask ChatGPT to summarize, you know, like everything we know about the wave function in quantum physics, it does an amazingly good job, right? Ask GPT, Janet and Penny went to the store to get a present for Jack. Janet says, I'd like to buy Jack a top. Don't get Jack a top, says Penny, he has a top, right? Ask GPT to continue, and it says nonsense. It says like, he has a top, he will get a top. I will get Jack a top, says Janet. It completely misses the logic of like one person explaining to the other, you shouldn't get Jack a top because he already has a top. Or physical reasoning. You have a small dinner party, you want to serve dinner in the living room, the dining room table is wider than the doorway, so to get into the living room, you will have to remove the door. You have a table saw, you cut the door in half and remove the top half. You know, like, it has no kind of deep model of what a living room is, or like what a table, the physics of a table feels like, or like how one, if you intend to kind of have more people in the dining room, like what that is. And the idea here is kind of, I think very much resonates with the Shoggoff model. One way to think about like these AI models and these deep learning models is to think of them as, I feel this way a lot actually. I have a 3-year-old son, and like watching my 3-year-old son learn is a lot like what I feel like when I train an AI model. Is that in some deep sense, like, you know, these AIs are kind of these unknown, kind of almost Martian intelligences, and what you get back is a deep sense that both, you know, they're learning incredibly fast, but that in some sense they see us as completely alien and are incapable of kind of forming what humans actually quite naturally do, very simple physical models of the world and very simple psychological models of other people. Let me give you some, I'll skip that. Let me give you an example, okay? Actually, you know, okay, so we're all kind of interested in, this was just this 1 month ago now, so it already feels kind of like outdated. But this is one of OpenAI's kind of premier examples from Sora. Okay, so the prompt that generates this, and let's actually look at, a stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long red dress, black boots, carries a black purse, sunglasses, red lipstick. She walks confidently and casually. The street is damp and reflective, creates a mirror effect and colorful lights. Many pedestrians walk about. You just ask Sora, turn that into a video. Okay, that description. And this is what it generates. Let's just watch this for a second. What do you think? It's pretty awesome, right? To get you in the right mindset of like, how do you think about the capability and how do you think about its weaknesses? Like, you know, in some deep sense, Sora has basically watched every video on the internet, but without having lived life as a human. So I want you to think about it as almost like, you know, as if a Martian was a superhumanly intelligent Martian, just watched every video on the internet, okay, without context, and then connecting those words made this video. What are some flaws that you see? Well, first of all, if you look at the signage, like none of those are real words, okay? Like if you like what is that? That's not Korean, that's not Japanese. It just kind of looks like what a Martian thinks Korean and Japanese or some kind of scripted Asian language looks like, okay? You know, the arm looks very strange. Like, you know, it's seen a lot of arms in sleeves, but it doesn't quite get how they articulate. You know, because it has no experience of having an elbow, okay? You know, if you look at like, you know, like what are you know, when people are supposed to mill about, like if you pay attention to kind of the people in the background, they feel a little weird, like they have no purpose, like they just kind of seem to be zombies kind of like following this woman through the street, okay? Let me kind of give you another example that kind of, I think, maybe illustrates this even better, okay? So here's the prompt. A person in 1930s Hollywood sits at a desk. They pick up a cigarette case, remove a cigarette, light it with a lighter. The person takes a long drag, sits back in the chair. Golden age of Hollywood. I want to give you a sense of like what, you know, you're trying to give Sora a sense of what the video should look like. Black and white film style. All right, sorry. Can you play this? Sorry, just. Okay, we'll watch it on repeat for a second. So, Sora clearly gets that you want this person to smoke, but it doesn't quite know how smoking works, right? Like, it's seen enough smoke in videos to get what smoke is supposed to look like, but the physics of when you put the cigarette in your mouth, you bring the lighter up to the thing, you take a drag, and that's what produces the smoke. Like, the physics of that, the world model is missing. Okay? The world model is missing. You can look at for some other things, right? So for example, it's seen a lot of picture of old-timey telephones. If you look closely, it's got 2 handsets. The cable plugs into the lamp. You know, there's various realistic looking things on the desk, but if you look carefully, it's not clear at all what those things are. right? They're like things that kind of look like hole punchers or stuff like this. But I mean, you can think about this like, if you showed your kid a floppy disk or like an old Atari system, it would it's kind of like a child trying to figure out like, what the hell is this thing? Kind of thing, right? From an outsider's perspective, okay? So the deep issue here is that in some deep sense, like these AIs, they're operating without a world model, okay? Like if we're almost kind of like, inductive learners about our world, they're kind of deductive. They just kind of like looking down on the world, they just recognize kind of patterns. People seem to like to put these tubes in their mouth, and then like white billowing smoke comes out of them. The psychological components are some of the most kind of weird. Let me kind of like show you this. The last video. A grandmother with neatly combed gray hair stands behind a colorful birthday cake with numerous candles in a wood dining room table. Expression is one of pure joy and happiness. Okay, well, I mean, we'll see whether that's what's reflected in her face. Happy people are around, several happy friends, family sitting at the table can be seen. Those people are out of focus. So listen, it's really getting the kind of staging, it's getting the composition. I mean, it's learning from some pretty good videos, right? Like, can we play this one? Okay, just watch it on repeat, okay? What exactly are you supposed to be doing when you parse your lips near a candle? Like, what happens? Here, play it on repeat again. Look at the people celebrating in the background. Okay, this is the real thing. Like, what are they doing with their hands? Like, what are you supposed to be like kind of, am I like clicking my fingers at you somehow? Like, I'm not sure what I'm communicating. Am I sign language clapping? Like, what's happening? Okay. And I think the thing you have to understand is that like, if you don't actually have an intuitive psychological model of a human, right? This is what like a party looks like to you. Right? It's what's interesting is like what AI is almost teaching us. It's like, what does a Martian psychopath think a birthday like is, or like looks like, or is doing? Right? Like it's exactly this kind of. So one way to think about this. Okay. Let's think about those as the kind of like limitations. And then let's think a little bit about like future of entertainment kind of production. Already, many people in this room